Dear President, dear colleagues, dear guests, we're most happy to launch this very first Info Day on Hamburg Institute for Advanced Studies, which will be recorded and will be for sure seen many times in the future. So we have a very tense program with a few welcoming speeches and then some more substantial presentations, all followed by Q&A. My name is Marek Tamm. I'm the member of this academy and the professor of cultural history in Tallinn University and will be chairing this Info Day today. And now, without any further ado, I'll give the floor for the first welcoming speech to our president, Professor Tarmo Soomere.
Good morning, everybody. It's my great pleasure to welcome here the delegation of the Hamburg Institute for Advanced Study. They provide something unusual to the scientific landscape we have. They provide something unusual in terms of science funding. So we all know that science funding is a great headache for everybody. It is usually turned to so-called average conditions, to an average scientist, to an average scientific group, average institution. And today, the main feature of the average institution, scientist, or group is the need to perform, to show performance, which means publish research papers to get funding for next research. And in Estonian context, it means get funding to continue your own job. This pretty much leads to overload of top researchers. Everybody has to work hard to earn a tenure, to earn a long-term position, which means, on the other hand, it is extremely difficult to start a high-risk and high-gain line of research, and it's even more difficult to change a research domain or a field. Another clear adverse consequence of this kind of philosophy is that people start to play too safe. So this is a play field for mediocrity. It doesn't actually mean that mediocrity is inevitable, but it's a natural outcome of this kind of science funding, which means in terms of science doing predominantly low-risk and low-gain research under this publish and perish philosophy. Kind of orientation on average is also visible in terms of timescales of funded research. It's always a few years. It's too long for crazy ideas, which you can disprove within a few months, and it's too short for a long range of humanities and social sciences, which do need longitudinal studies to understand the entire process. So there are two major gaps in this sort of landscape. First, long-term research, like Deutsches Rechtswörterbuch, which has been performed 125 years, and now it is at letter T, which means still 15, 20 years to go. Okay, this is really extreme, but the Heidelberg Academy of Sciences issues research grants with the shortest duration of 18 years. So another gap, which is also a major gap, is doing some research which is not funded by classic funding, which is too crazy or too deviating from classic lines of thinking. This kind of research is funded in Estonian Academy of Sciences in terms of academy research professors. The positions are created at least for 1 year and maximum 3 years. We have had more than 20 years 3 such kind of positions for blue sky research, which is strongly competition-based, but the topics are coming from researchers themselves. From last year, we have several positions with predefined topics, and we have last year filled 2 positions in Arctic studies for 1 year, and this year we have filled 1 position for Estonian language and its teaching also for 1 year. But we do feel the necessity to fund shorter studies, not only for crazy research, but also for talking to each other, to talk people from different scientific communities, to talk people from different scientific areas and countries. And this is a gap which is systematically filled in many countries by institutes of advanced studies, and we are really ashamed that we do not have such a working institute here in Estonia. We have an empty box which hasn't been filled with content, and I hope very much that today's presentation helps not only people who are wishing to make some crazy research, but it's also instructive to our academy how to get this empty box living. So I'm wishing a very nice discussion and information day today.
Thank you. And the second welcome will be delivered in the name of the Estonian Young Academy of Arts by Professor Andres Siebeck from the University of Tartu, and as it happens, also future fellow of HIAS. Please.
Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you here and many of you behind the screens. I'm very happy to welcome you on behalf of the Young Academy, because during the years when the Young Academy has been put in place, we have constantly talked about the need to continue working on your own projects while you have tons of other obligations in your everyday life and in academia. So how to find time, how to secure the funding, and how to find a space so you can actually think and process your ideas. I think today we will hear quite a bit of different stories and opportunities how to materialize these dreams that Hamburg Institute of Advanced Studies is offering. And also in addition to that, we see that present-day academia is a place where we should be striving towards as interdisciplinary research as possible. So it's not a time to be stuck in your ivory towers and your disciplinary silos, but to break free from those silos and to mingle, because all these present-day problems that we have tend to be problems that cannot be solved by just one discipline alone, but as they are wicked problems, they need our all input and skills and knowledge. So I think, again, the opportunity that Hamburg Institute of Advanced Studies provides us is exactly this, to mingle internationally and very interdisciplinary and break free from those boundaries. So I'm looking forward to the discussions today, and I look forward to seeing also many inspiring applications from Estonia and neighboring countries that would contribute to the lively community that there is in HIAS, and for that also contributing to the scientific community here in Estonia and abroad. So thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to work. And as said, we are very pleased and very honored to have 2 key persons of Hamburg Institute for Advanced Studies, 2 eminence grise, with us to present the institution, its opportunities, and how to apply successfully. And we will start by the presentation by Dr. Dorothea Rylund, who is the Secretary General of HIAS, and she will give us an introduction to the HIAS, if not mistaken. So please, Dorothea, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear President, dear Professor Tam, dear colleagues from different institutions, obviously, over here, and for the very, very kind reception. We are both, Sonny and I myself, we are very glad to be here and to have a chance to talk to you. And why are we here, actually? Yes, we would like to introduce HIAS, which is quite a new institution. HIAS was opened in the year 2019. Why, I will tell you later on a little bit about. And what are we aiming at? And I think my pre-speaker, she already mentioned the most important 3 words. What can we offer? We can offer time, we can offer funding, and we can offer space, and I would add, in a very international environment. What we are not aiming at, to make it very clear, we don't want to have average. If you come to HIAS, we are expecting exciting discussions, exciting meetings, and in general, I would say, exciting outcomes as well. Institutes for Advanced Study, worldwide, we have around 150. They are not as old as some of the academies worldwide. Some are several hundred years old, actually. The first Institute for Advanced Study was founded in the year 1930 in Princeton by Abraham Flexner. And what was his mission? I think it might have been twofold. First of all, he wanted to create such a place where scientists can follow their work. And secondly, he wanted to reform the American university system according to what we call Humboldtian model. After Princeton, there were several waves where new institutes were founded. You can find them all over the world today. In Germany alone, we have around 25. I will tell you a bit more about them. And they all have at least one mission. They want to attract excellent researchers and offer, as I mentioned, time, funding, and space. But in general, they have 2 or 3 other missions as well. They are quite small institutions, and they have to find their own individual profile. After the first institutes were founded in the United States, one important mission was internationalization, or early career researchers. Today, I would say the 2 most important aspects, apart from excellence in research, is interdisciplinarity, I will come back to this later, and to be part of a global scientific community. I have a presentation, by the way. Here you have a first glimpse how HIAS actually looks like. We have 2 premises. On the upper one, you can see this is an old house, end of 19th century, not as nice as your building over here, but it's lovely and we all love it very much. It's very nicely redesigned. It's quite close to the university, walking distance, 5 minutes. And in general, our fellows stay in another building, quite an old building as well, on the opposite side of the road. This is the guest house of Hamburg University. So the whole environment is very efficient for scientific work. We have a second premise you can see further down, quite modern, where we have rooms as well for conferences and workshops. So it's a nice environment. On the right side, you see our kitchen, which might be the most important place, actually, because people meet over there. There is the big coffee machine, and there you can get food, beverages, and in general, some people you can talk to. Let's talk a bit about the structure of HIAS, because it's quite unusual. In general, worldwide, the majority of the Institutes of Advanced Studies, they are university-based. That means they are part of a university. The same is true in Germany. We have, as I mentioned, around 25 institutes, and the majority belongs to a university. From Konstanz down the south, through Freiburg, many more, Frankfurt, at many places, you find these institutes. Why they developed, I will tell you later. Hamburg is quite different. we are totally independent, and we are a membership organization. The Academy, you can see, is a member as well, and many different universities from the Hamburg region, but quite unusual as well, Hochschule für Bildende Künste for arts and Hochschule für Music for music. They are members as well, so whenever you come, there are some artists around as well. Extremely important for the development of HIAS was the success of the University of Hamburg in the, as I called it, excellence strategy. This is a nationwide competition. You not only have it in Germany, you have it in some of the neighboring countries. It's a competitive process going on worldwide, I would say. In Germany, it's on 2 different levels. On the first level, universities do have to apply with research clusters, huge interdisciplinary projects for extra funding. And in case they are successful with 2 clusters at least, then they can apply for the excellence strategy. And as many other German universities as well, Hamburg applied with the idea to set up an institute for advanced study. Because as the president already mentioned, it's desperately needed. You need a certain space where you can stay for a certain time and follow your scientific interests. So Hamburg was very successful, the second most successful university all over Germany, frankly speaking, quite unexpected. Everybody thought about Heidelberg, Munich, Berlin. No. Bonn got 6 clusters and Hamburg 4. Nobody expected this, and I think this is a huge success for this university. What is quite unusual as well, you can see here, there is a strong commitment by the city of Hamburg. Why that? And that might be interesting for Tallinn as well. Hamburg is well known for its huge harbor. I don't know whether you had a chance to go there. And now in the harbor, the Elbphilharmonie, we will take you there. It's a marvelous concert hall. It's really beautiful. It's famous for its harbor and for trade. But this will not be the future. Hamburg has to change. And the city is very much aware of that. The city has to change into a science hub. So the city of Hamburg, which is a state in itself in Germany, we have a very decentralized structure, decided to invest into an institute for advanced study. I think there are not many worldwide where cities decided to support such an institute. They not only support HIAS, what they are doing as well, they built a totally new science city. It's called Bahrenfeld. So when you come here to Hamburg, you should have a look over there because this is quite unusual that a city is so far-sighted to think about much more than the next 10, 20, 30 years ahead. So we are most happy. We get lots of support from the city and all the funding, the institutional funding, that means our buildings, the salaries, the running costs, all this is covered by the city of Hamburg. If you look at the funding, accordingly to the structure, the funding does come from different sources. The first one, as I already mentioned, from the local ministry in Hamburg, and they are very good, very reliable partners. The fellowships are financially supported by Universität Hamburg, the biggest amount of money, the Academy of Sciences, and different foundations. Hamburg is quite famous for foundations because there was so much trade, so big companies were located in Hamburg, and in the end they decided to build up their own foundation. You might have heard the newspaper Zeit, and the founder of this newspaper, he set up this foundation, which is mentioned here as well. There was an evaluation of all institutes for advanced study in Germany by the German Science Council, with 2 outcomes. The Science Council mentioned that institutes of advanced study are very important for the German science system. Good to hear. It's not nice to have. You have to have it. That makes a difference. But on the other hand, they made very clear each institute has to look for its own profile. Not every institute can do everything. So right from the beginning, we thought about a strategy of HIAS. And here you can see what we offer. I already mentioned individual fellowships between 3 months and 10 months. And now you can see what we are aiming at. Excellence in research, this all 150 institutes worldwide do have in common. They want to get excellent researchers coming to the institute. What makes a difference to other ones is the next point. We are aiming at scientific networks. We want to use HIAS as a kind of instrument to make Hamburg more international. And as we all know, all the big scientific topics we talk about, whether it was COVID or climate change or whatsoever, or when we went to this Baltic conference, if you had to look at the different topics, the outcome, they always came from networks, not just by one researcher. Not one researcher can solve huge problems, him or herself. Not the climate change, no university can do it, no country can do it, only in networks. So networking seems to be extremely important, and you need international networks. You need partners all over the world. So this is something HIAS has very strongly in mind, and we try to work out networks on a global level, on a regional level, and on a local level. What does that mean? On a local level, whenever a researcher comes to Hamburg, either he or she already knows with whom she or he want to cooperate. Quite often they know their partners. In case they do not yet know, we will help to identify the best partners to do research with and to meet when you are in Hamburg. Globally, we try to build cooperations. For example, we started a cooperation with Stellenbosch University in South Africa, which is a strategic partner of Universität Hamburg as well. And we just started another cooperation with CALAS. This is a huge project in Latin America. Next aspect I already mentioned already. I think most of the institutes of advanced study today have a transdisciplinary approach. There are a few institutes focusing just on one topic. For example, there is one in mathematics, Oberwolfach, or there is one in physics in Frankfurt. But many of these institutes follow a transdisciplinary approach. That means we are open to any kind of discipline, including arts and music. We invite all career levels to come to HIAS, but would like to have a special focus on early career researchers. Therefore, we do have a close cooperation with the Global Young Academy or the Young Academies all over Germany. You might know in Germany we do not have just one Academy of Science. It's decentralized. We have 16 altogether, and then we have Leopoldina as the kind of umbrella. And all the 16 Academies of Sciences, they do have their own young academies, and we are in close touch with them. And there's a last point which is important to us, I think to society and to the city of Hamburg as well. We try to disseminate a little bit of the life of HIAS and especially of the outcome of the research which is done at HIAS to the public. So we organize public lectures, we organize conferences. For example, in autumn, there will be a huge conference on biodiversity, and HIAS will organize a meeting where we discuss what social sciences, humanities, and law can contribute to biodiversity. It's not just an issue of the sciences, but on the other fields as well. So from time to time, we have this kind of outreach. Yeah. Visibility. This was quite important for us because we were very new, just opened in the year 19, and nobody knew about HIAS, so what to do? There is every year an open call in Hamburg at our membership institutions. The different presidents and directors, they write to all professors and tell them there is a new option to invite fellows from abroad. This is quite helpful because it starts the networking right from the beginning, and professors from Hamburg have a chance to invite exactly these scientists they are mostly interested in. Of course, what we all do have, we have a website, social media, and a flyer, as you can see here. Please help yourself. As I already mentioned, we try to extend the strategic partnerships with certain institutions. I mentioned Stellenbosch, I mentioned CALAS, or other projects might be with your institution, we will see. Before I came to HIAS, I was Secretary General at DAAD. It might be familiar here. You have two lecturers, one in Tartu and one in Tallinn from DAAD, German Academic Exchange Service. And I still have a very close relationship because I worked for decades actually for DAAD. So I can make use of the DAAD network all over the world via the offices and via the projects. And last but not least, we got in contact with the global Young Academy and the Young Academies from the Academy of Sciences, and they all promote HIAS. So today we get high numbers of applications from all over the world, but not from this part. And I think this is a pity. And the city of Hamburg was very fond of the idea that we would come over here because Hamburg is looking very much in this region, you know. We are a part of a cultural, how to say, cultural community, yeah? So you are the first one, and we hope very much quite a few might follow. And with this, I come to an end. Sonja, she will tell you more about the life at HIAS and how to apply successfully. There are still challenges, of course. And the biggest challenge, I think, for all institutes for advanced studies, there are certain networks worldwide of these institutes, as you have for the academies as well. There's a European network. It's called NetHIAS, and we are a member now of NetHIAS. So the biggest challenge is a good diversity in an institute for advanced study. And I think there are, first of all, I would say 4 criteria. Gender is a big issue. It was a disaster at the beginning. There were no female applications, but this changed now. We are happy about this. We would like to have a regional diversity. Not only at the beginning, we mostly got applications from Britain, United States, might be from France. But we want to have a global diversity. So this was the second aspect. The third one, we would like to have a broad range of disciplines, because we realize the encounter between different disciplines, suddenly new ideas arise. And this is really amazing. To give you an idea from your field, we had this professor in medieval studies, and she is working on visions of nuns in monasteries in the medieval times. And there was a professor from the field of neuroscience, and you wouldn't have expected that they could do research together. But he was so much interested in these visions, and he wanted to understand from the field of neuroscience what is happening over there, so they started a joint research project. Next Thursday, we have a colloquium, what we have every Thursday. A professor from philosophy, he will give a colloquium, and a professor from anthropology, he will join. So we are very much interested in these encounters between different fields. This is something which makes such an institute so special, because in general you just don't have the time to meet your colleagues, might be from neuroscience or from other fields. But this happens in such an environment, and I think this is one of the aspects why it's so exciting to stay there. And we are looking forward to see you soon. Now I hand over to Sonja. Or would you like to ask some questions?
I think we have some time to take a few questions from the audience, and also actually we have a slider for those who are attending us online, so eventually you can transmit your question by distance. And should you want to ask something, please use the mic for the recording purposes.
Yeah, so thank you. My name is Margaret Talley. I'm from the Estonian Arts Academy. And I wanted to ask you further about these collaborations that you mentioned, these projects, just to know a little bit further what's the bigger subjects also at HIAS and the universities connected with it. So you mentioned there was the South African collaboration and the Latin American collaborative project. So perhaps you could talk a little bit further about those.
Very important. Your question is very important. Frankly speaking, I changed my mind. Before I came to Hamburg, DAD is located in Bonn, and I moved from Bonn to Hamburg, and when I was asked to come there, I thought it might be a good idea to have certain broad topics to work on. And some institutes are exactly following this line. But when I came to Hamburg, and when I met all these researchers, I totally changed my mind. And today I'm very much convinced that institutes of advanced study should work up bottom up. The ideas must be brought or must come from the fellows. And you never know which topic is the most exciting one in a certain batch of fellows. Yeah. Last year, for example, art history was a very important aspect. This year again. And another aspect I didn't expect at all is the future of cities. Because we had one fellow from Cambridge who did an ERC grant in Berlin and in Hamburg. He got the funding from the EU before the Brexit. And what he did was so exciting for scientists in Hamburg, but in Berlin as well. So we decided we will have a conference on the future of cities in the British Embassy. I know the ambassador very well, so she allowed us to have it in the embassy, in the British Embassy in Berlin. Today, I would say, in general, the main topics people are interested in, they develop bottom up. The other thing you mentioned, how to build up cooperations. Stellenbosch, as I mentioned, is a strategic partnership university of Universität Hamburg. And they have an excellent program, what we all liked very much. It's called ISOLOMSO. It's a program, I think it's mostly financed from Sweden, where Stellenbosch, which has a huge Institute for Advanced Study itself, invites young fellows from all the neighboring African countries to come to Stellenbosch. The funding goes over 3 years. They stay in Stellenbosch for a certain time, and then they can go to other institutes of advanced studies abroad. And for us, this was a very good opportunity to make a first contact with Africa, actually. And we hope very much. We got an excellent young philosopher from Stellenbosch, who she stayed with us for, I think, 4 months. This was really great, and I hope year by year we will get some fellows from there. The other cooperation we thought about, Latin America, is very important as well. And there are some huge projects by the German Ministry of Education and Research. This is on social labor. And they approached us whether we would be interested to cooperate with them. So, as I mentioned, we try to build up a kind of diversity and to get some reliable partners all over the different continents.
Thank you. If I may ask something, I was curious about, while reading the website of HIAS, you underline that you want to be, as an institution, an active partner for the city and to contribute to the intellectual and cultural urban life of Hamburg. And this is, I would say, quite exceptional to my experience, because quite often those institutes for advanced studies are meant to be kind of monasteries or oases, to be isolated from the urban life as such, while you want to be in a dialogue. But can you tell about the forms this sort of collaboration takes? And because it's not that easy to put scholars into the social life. And yeah.
I think the main reason is we all do observe that the relationship between science and society is changing. Today, science is getting more and more important. I think in a certain way, COVID was a kind of turning point. Yeah? Without life sciences and medicine, we wouldn't have been able to solve this pandemic. Yeah? And the same is true for climate change. But the relationship between society and science is not clear at the moment. There are certain expectations on side of society. They do expect that each scientist is telling the truth. But life is not so easy, as you know much better than I do. Science is a process. Yeah? You can go wrong, you might be right, you have to change from time to time your ideas or your positions. And this process to communicate into society, I think this is extremely important. In many countries, science communication at the moment is a huge issue. And in many countries as well, you see a polarization of society. And I think science has a certain responsibility. And we spend taxpayers' money. And what we found out, what is very interesting, not all, but some of the researchers are very keen to start such a kind of communication. And we developed several formats, smaller ones and larger ones. Just opposite from HIAS, there is a huge museum, and they have a beautiful old auditorium. And sometimes we use this, for example, for the conference on biodiversity and the contribution of humanity, social sciences, and law. This will take place over there. It's not an easy task, you are absolutely right, because in general, only people who are really interested will come and take part. Yeah? We should approach other groups in society, what is not so easy. We have to think about this again. But for example, on COVID, we had a very good conference. It was open to the public on COVID and time, because the feeling of time has changed tremendously through COVID. Some processes were faster, some were slower, and we had a scientist who did research on that. We have very small formats with not more than 20 people, where we meet in a very close environment. We invite decision makers on certain issues which are really important for politics. For example, we had such a meeting on data protection or assisted suicide, because the German government has to write a new law on this. This we wouldn't do for general public, but for example, directors from clinics, from law companies, we invited to have a very open discussion. There's no protocol, everybody can speak very frankly. It's a kind of decision-making process, so many different formats. But since we are quite young, we are still looking for new ways and means how to communicate what we are doing.
But maybe then the other aspect I find very important and not that usual is the involvement of artists in the HIAS. And then also maybe you could tell how it works. I mean, when you put together researchers and artists, do we expect that the artists are doing some kind of artistic research, that they should relate to the ongoing research? or are they completely free to elaborate, I don't know, art exhibitions and whatever? And then maybe this is also yet another way how to communicate with the society via the artists. Yeah.
I would love to invite you for the 3rd of May to come to Hamburg, because one of our fellows, she will perform her new opera. She comes from Australia, Cat Hope. Frankly speaking, they are totally free. Yeah, but nevertheless, we have certain boards to select our fellows, and the director from the Kunsthalle and the director from the School of Arts, they are members over there, and they are very much interested to attract people who might be interested to have their own exhibition at the Kunsthalle in Hamburg. This was quite new for us as well. Last year this was great. We had a conductor for new music, not so easy to listen for everybody. And each Tuesday after our lunch, we have 2 times where the fellows have to come together. Apart from that, they're free to do whatever they like to. We have a lunch together, only the fellows, not we, the people working there. And on Thursday, we have colloquium, yeah, and a dinner afterwards. And every Tuesday, this conductor, he took all the fellows and introduced a new piece of music to them. And they loved it. They were not used to this kind of music. And I joined, and I must say, I learned so much. It's a totally new way of listening if you have such a great expert who is explaining what he is doing all the time. And apart from that, he performed a new Singspiel, something between opera and, I don't know what, you might know what a Singspiel. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, then. Maybe any other final question? Okay, thank you so much, Dorothea. And we will proceed further. And indeed, we'll have Dr. Sonja Kreber-Magoshi, who is the fellow manager of HIAS, and will explain us how to submit a successful application to HIAS. So please, Sonja, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am one of 3 fellow managers we have at HIAS, and we are not in the business of selecting the fellows. I will tell you who has the wonderful task to do that, but we are communicating with the fellows in preparation for their stay. So usually there's at least a year of back and forth, mostly via email or by Zoom, where we try to prepare the fellows' day as best as possible and to really make sure that we find a good, tailor-made solution for everyone, because everyone's situation is different. But more in detail, so as Dorothea said, we publicize our fellowships via an open call. We do that on the HIAS website. We are also on social media, namely on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And we also have this print material here that you're very welcome to take with you today if you're here in person. And as Dorothea already said, we also use the channels of the DAAD network and those of the Global Young Academy. So, as also already mentioned, the fellowships at HIAS are usually between 3 and 10 months long. The most common lengths are 3, 6, and 10 months. Actually, 10 months is what most people apply for. But to be frank, anything in between is possible as well. If someone can only stay for 5 months, but would like to stay more than 4 months, then 5 months that is. Our application process, or the applications themselves, are relatively lean. Or the selection committee is looking for the previous individual academic or artistic performance. So they will look at the CV and at the publication record and see how that particular applicant's performance is up with regard to their career stage. Obviously, that means something different for a very well-established older scholar or scientist, or for an emeritus or an emerita, or for an early career researcher. So obviously, an early career researcher applicant will not be measured with the same criteria with which a far more seasoned and experienced and older colleague will be assessed, but their unique position will be taken into account and seen compared to other early career researchers within that field, because as you know, fields disciplines are also quite different in how they, for example, assess publications and the amount of publications, or the amount in which one is connected internationally are quite different. Then what's also of great importance is the quality of the submitted project proposal. Every applicant is asked to add a sketch, a proposal of the project with which he or she is planning on coming to Hamburg and to work on during their time in Hamburg. This sketch is at the most 3 pages long and should really make clear that this is an innovative project within that person's field. It would be very good if it showed a disciplinary outlook or a transdisciplinary outlook. So someone who is not, who's curious, who's open to many other vantage points and viewpoints, and who is not adamant about sticking to, the defines maybe of their own discipline. What's also very important is the expectable contribution to the cohort, meaning the fellow group that is about to be assembled, as well as to the academic landscape in Hamburg. And with that, we mean that our selection committee really likes to see that an application has an actual interest in Hamburg as a site of science and of research behind it, that it's not maybe an application that you could submit just like that to 5 other institutes for advanced study, but that is keeping in mind what the specific scientific landscape in Hamburg looks like. It's always great if people already know, not personally, but have heard of or know of people who are working in their field, or maybe in another field, but in a field that is relevant and interesting to the project that they are planning on conducting. Very important, again, as I mentioned before, is an openness to interdisciplinarity. So it's important to see that the person really has a credible history in looking to the left and to the right, and to being interested in taking different vantage points. So as Dorothea already alluded to, our goal is to compose a group of fellows that is as diverse as possible. Diverse means in terms of disciplines, and that includes, as you heard, the visual arts and music. In terms of gender, which is not always that easy. We, especially in the beginning, did get a lot more applications from male scientists and scholars, and often the female applicants applied for considerably shorter amounts of time, which obviously is probably due to the way in which family obligations are still divided between the genders, and of what people feel comfortable doing, and how long they feel comfortable being away from home, especially if they have young families. Then diversity in terms of countries of origin. As Dorothea said, we are looking to all continents. We currently have fellows from 3 continents in our group at HIAS, and we'd like to expand this as much as possible. Most of our applications, and that goes for all the institutes for advanced study, are from Western nations, and often these are fellows or people who apply, who have been fellows already at different institutions, and we are really looking, as are many other institutes for advanced study, that's not unique to HIAS, we are really looking at and aiming at not recreating more of the same, meaning giving to people who already have a lot, but to really seek out excellent scholars who are maybe also working in an academic tradition, in an academic realm that has still other traditions when it comes to application, when it comes to publication, when it comes to how to do research. There are still a lot of differences, and it's really important to us to be as unbiased as possible, or to at least be aware of our bias, and to second guess it, and to really question it, and to make sure that an application that coming from Africa or from Latin America, that does look different in terms of structure and how you present yourself to that of someone from a liberal arts college or from an Ivy League university in the US or in Canada or in other places. A fourth important point when it comes to diversity is the career level. So obviously it's important to us to really have a broad range of people who are at all different stages of their career. And there again, we get a lot of applications from very established, settled scholars and scientists. That's not surprising because obviously if you're still in the rush hour of life and you have all kinds of duties, both professional and then personal in your family with little children, it is much more difficult to also carve out time to, first of all, apply for a fellowship like this, but then also to find space in your life to maybe come with all of your family, or make the decision to come on your own. So we're really trying to find tailor-made solutions, especially for early career researchers who are wishing to come with their families. So in essence, the right mixture is the key to serendipitous encounters. And with that, with serendipitous encounters, we mean what Dorothea alluded to before. These 2 weekly meetings at HIAS, the lunch on Tuesdays and the colloquium followed by dinner on Thursdays, are really important in order to bring these very diverse people together and to make sure that that there is space for scientific talk, for scholarly talk, but also for chat that then often makes people realize, oh, you're working on something that, sounds very medicine-y to me, but me as a theologian, I have that brings something to mind that is important to my research, and vice versa. The selection criteria that our selection committee, which is, I'll tell you about that in a second, is mainly looking at our significant monographs, articles on first authorship, publications or reviews in relevant either academic journals or art pages or art journals, depending on whether it is scientists or artists. Prestigious prizes and awards, memberships in societies or academies such as yours, or for artists, exhibitions in renowned museums or art institutions, or concerts or performances at renowned stages. And something that is always that the committee is always on the lookout for are traces or kind of hints of that person influencing or shaping public discourse. You know, people who are making this attempt of going out, just as HIAS is, to go out into society, to talk to people, especially in fields that are highly applicable to all kinds of public life, be it medicine or lots of fields of sociology and also the humanities. The selection process is science-led. That means that the high quality of the research that person has been doing, is doing, and is planning on doing is at the center of or uppermost criterion. And the process is conducted by an international and interdisciplinary selection committee, according to transparent criteria, the criteria that I just introduced to you. This selection committee consists of 4 people. They are covering the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And every application is peer-reviewed by 2 people. By 2 people whose own expertise is as close to the subject as possible, and that can be either members of HIAS's executive committee or of its advisory council. Now, if none of these persons' disciplines are close to an applicant's topic, we ask external experts, researchers, or artists to provide an application for us, and that is the case in about 50% of the applications that we have to draw back on people who are not in our 2 committees. So you might wonder what the benefits and the services of the fellowships are. First of all, we pay a stipend at the level of the career phase equivalent in Hamburg. So that means that, so actually it's either one of 2 schemes. In cases where fellows, once they are fellows, when their home institutions agree to letting them go on leave with their pay, so they continue to receive the usual salary while they're in Hamburg, HIAS pays for a teaching replacement for that fellow at their home institution. Now, obviously, that only makes sense in cases where that person has a teaching load or where the home institution agrees to that. In cases where that's not the case, where a home institution says, well, you're free to go, but you don't receive your usual salary from us, HIAS pays that fellow what they usually get, their usual salary, and in cases where that salary is below what the comparable career equivalent is in Hamburg, we pay the difference to that, so that at the end, that person ends up during their time in Hamburg with a salary that is on the level of someone at their career stage in Hamburg. All of our fellows are being accommodated at the guest house of Universität Hamburg, and that includes any accompanying family members. So we've had fellows who came with their spouse and with 2 or 3 children. The guest house of Universität Hamburg is just across the street, about 5 minutes walking distance. It's a very nice, green, safe neighborhood that's right next to a lot of the university's institutes and libraries, and so there's a lot of student life, but it's also located right in the center of the city, so you're not somewhere, in a monastery or in an ivory tower. HIAS reimburses the travel costs for the round trip, meaning for the way to Hamburg and back. Again, including any family members that might accompany that fellow. We also pay for emergency health insurance, both for the fellow and any person they bring with them to stay with them. So that is also an important point, especially with kids. We provide a library service. That means that we have assistants working at HIAS who will get our fellows all the literature or other media that they require. Our fellows are also very invited and welcome to go to any of the libraries or archives at Universität Hamburg. Anything from scanning articles to procuring literature or other material will also be taken care of by our research assistants. And we assist fellows who come with children in finding schools or childcare facilities, especially childcare spaces can be quite difficult to find. So that's something that we help with, especially when it comes to knowing about certain areas. Is that a area that is close enough, or a nice area where you want your kids to go to school or to daycare. Now to expectations. We do have a few expectations, and Dorothea mentioned them pretty much already. We expect our fellows to be in Hamburg for most of the time, but particularly we ask them to attend the 2 weekly meetings, the lunches on Tuesdays, and the colloquium followed by a dinner that also takes place at HIAS on Thursdays. In between, they are free to go, and often people, go on little research trips, maybe to areas in the immediate vicinity, or there's a conference that you've signed up for a long time ago, or some interesting, important meeting for your field that happens to take place in Vienna or in Dublin while you're in Hamburg. So our fellows are obviously encouraged and welcome to do that. But if you chose something, for example, in your application that requires that you, out of your 6 months in Hamburg, you're being in Rome for 2 months to work in a special library there, that would be something we had to work around. That would be considered probably a downside, because it is really important to us to be able to create this community of fellows, and you can only really reliably do that if people are there most of the time, if they see that their fellow fellows are there most of the time, that there are the same rules for everyone. So that is something that is important to us. We also expect our fellows to forge new networks, both between themselves and so among each other with other fellows. That's what these lunches and the dinners are for. And also with partners of the different member institutions. And a very important sort of unique selling point of HIAS is that we give each of our fellows a cooperation partner, a so-called tandem partner, to their side. This tandem partner is a professor from one of our 9 member institutions. And we expect these tandem partners to introduce their fellow into their respective local community, because it is important to us that our fellows are not, while they're in Hamburg, working all by, silently by themselves, not knowing who in their field or an adjacent field is doing interesting work in Hamburg. And we want them to get the chance to really quickly get to know as many people as possible, hear about opportunities and about events and all kinds of things that are stimulating to them and that can really advance them in their goals and in their networking. We also expect or very much appreciate new interdisciplinary results. As Dorothea mentioned, we really want to see our fellows, we want to see sparks fly between our fellows. We want to see that they are, that they are curious about one another, that they are listening to one another, engaging with one another, with the goal of hopefully identifying common interests, and then pushing those or bringing those onto the next level by maybe writing a joint funding proposal, or maybe even creating a new joint study program between their respective home institutions, whatever it might be. We very much hope for these things to happen at HIAS. And we hope, of course, that both while our fellows are still in Hamburg, and especially once they're then leaving Hamburg again, going back to their home institutions or onto other new exciting jobs, to raise the visibility of HIAS in the whole world, and also within the city while they're there. So with a lot of events, and as Dorothea mentioned, a lot of our fellows realize pretty quickly, after they've spent a few weeks in Hamburg, that there are a lot of opportunities for them to connect, to give talks, to give lectures, to put on conferences that bring other colleagues of theirs that they normally don't see, and that they get the opportunity to work with in Hamburg together, and to invite them to HIAS and to show them what both HIAS and Hamburg can offer to their colleagues and to science and the arts in general. Yeah, so the weekly Life at HIAS, you've heard it before. We have the fellow lunches and the colloquium and joint dinner. What happens at the colloquium on Thursdays is that each week a fellow is presenting their work. It can be their project that they're working on at HIAS. It can be something maybe that sparked their interest or new thoughts while they were there. We've had people presenting with another fellow because they've developed an idea. We always also invite the tandem partners, and often, or now on this coming Thursday, as Dorothea mentioned, one of our fellows, a philosopher, is inviting his tandem partner who's a cultural anthropologist, and they will present their joint work. So that is always exciting, because that's when you also get an idea as to what this interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity really means in action. Because we also want to show our fellows where they ended up, where they are in Hamburg, because Hamburg is such a vibrant and diverse city. We offer a cultural program with talks and excursions and visits to concerts, for example, at the Elbphilharmonie, or to museums. And that, again, is a very nice possibility of bringing people together, of realizing that you have joint interests, or just, hobbies, whatever. We also give our fellows a considerable budget for the organizing and the conducting of workshops and other events that they might want to do while they're in Hamburg. So everyone gets 450 euros per month that they're there. So in some cases up to 4,500 euros. And a lot of our fellows use that budget to invite colleagues and to then conduct a workshop, a 1 or 2 day long workshop, where they work in a really focused and intense way with people whom they might have met at a conference there 2 years ago, and then there's someone I know who's working on a really interesting thing that I've only read about, but I have never met personally. They invite these people to Hamburg, to HIAS, to work on something. And those are the kinds of things that we really see yielding a lot of lasting impact, because the sustainability of these connections that are made at HIAS is really important to us, that it's not just dissipating into thin air again once people have left Hamburg and HIAS and are back at their home institutions. Yes, that's it from my part. If there are more questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Thank you. And indeed, we have time for questions.
Very good.
Myself, quite a few, but give the floor to the audience first, if you have anything to want to know. Because anyhow, thanks for making the Institute truly appealing. Yeah, I think. I see. Everyone wants me to start. Okay. Yes. Maybe first question about this research project proposal. You said that you expect it to be up to 3 pages, but can you be maybe more specific? Why do you expect more, this kind of book writing project that I want to finish something that I've been working on for years and now I finally need time to, write it down? Or you would also rather maybe expect some new explorative projects that might not have yet any, tangible outcome during the stay, that I just want to, find something new and etc. Maybe you can give some examples of maybe some projects or whatever. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very good question. I would say ideal is a mix of these things and some things in between. So we do have, every year we have fellows who say, oh, I really need some time to work really focused on just finishing this monograph or on finishing this proposal. Often they come already with a follow-up idea. That is something that we like to see, that it's not just, because if we can pretty much see from that proposal that the person is likely not to be seen much, but kind of working in their office in order to make the most out of the 3 months that are there, that's great. That's totally, that's perfectly all right. But we'd like to see that they have an idea of how to, of what's next. And then we do have a lot of fellows who come with a broader idea, with something that is more open-ended. And then there are differing views from the external experts who write the evaluations, whether how important it is if something can be finalized or finished while in Hamburg, or if they say, oh, well, really, this seems like a huge project. I cannot see how this person can really tackle this in 10 months even. But if the selection committee is convinced of the idea and very impressed by the can-do spirit and attitude of that person, that might not be a deterring factor. So it also really depends on, I mentioned the importance of diversity. And if we have 2 people like that and 3 people like that, and then someone who has already, if it's an artist who has already realized a specific idea in one city, but now has an idea of how to Hamburgize this idea, for example, that is really exciting, and that is yet something different. It means that you're kind of you're reworking something that's already finished. So it really is the overall tableau of all kinds of different projects.
Then you emphasize that at least during the selection, you try to fit projects together in a way that they create some kind of I don't know, dialogue. But from the applicant's point of view, of course, you don't know what are the other projects. So actually, this is something that you cannot decide beforehand.
I would say it's not so much the projects, okay, because that is something, frankly, that not even our selection committee really is able to do. We cannot look into these applicants' heads, and we of course read their outline. Or they read their outline. They read their publication record. They get a good idea as to what it is probably going to be about. But as Dorothea said, the bottom up approach is really important. And it's important to us to bring these fellows together, to give them the space and a very nice atmosphere that is conducive to developing ideas and to discovering connections. And then it is their job to do that, and they always do that fantastically. They don't need us, and they don't need our selection committee to kind of match projects with one another.
So we have a couple of questions from the distant participants. I wonder whether we can show them on the screen as well. So the first is, are the application reviewing criteria given all equal weight, or some of them are more important?
I would say most important is, as I said, what's often referred to as excellence. Now that's difficult to define and a tricky matter, but it is a certain scientific or artistic level of excellency.
Excellence of the person, of the project, or both? Or
I would say it's a mix of past performance.
Okay.
What has this person done in the past? What is most likely, if this person is to continue in that same fashion, what can be expected of that person? And then I would say with the project proposal, it is originality, it is interdisciplinarity, maybe even transdisciplinarity, and a certain openness. Someone who demonstrates that they are really, that they welcome other views and questions. That might even, make them have to change the direction of their project. But that it is something that they are welcoming rather than rejecting, and that they're seeking out this atmosphere. Because otherwise, if you just want to be left alone, you can just stay at home. You don't have to come to HIAS. But so I would say that is those are the most important criteria for the selection committee.
Dorothea?
Sure.
Yeah.
This question is a very important one, and I would say in a certain way decisive one. And we are still in a process, and not only HIAS. Especially as far as early career researchers are concerned. It's not so difficult if you look at a well-reputed professor and you have a look at the publication list, and as you mentioned, you can expect he will write certain article, that's fine, But it's much more difficult to identify criteria and to distinguish if you have people where you have to have a focus on the potential. And this is a huge discussion between the different institutes for advanced study. As I mentioned, there are certain networks now, and especially, I not only want to make, let's say, marketing for HIAS, but if you think about to go to another country, have a look at NetHIAS. As I said, NETIAS. This is a network of European institutes for advanced study. And in most of the countries you can find them. And it's quite a tough peer review. It's not easy to get a membership. When we applied last year, 5 institutes applied and only we were allowed to join in. So there's really a good reputation, and some of them are in your neighborhood. As I mentioned, in Sweden is a very good one. Aarhus is a very good one. And we try to extend cooperation with them. And one of the big issues is how identify potential. You as a professor, you have to do this every day. Yeah, how to identify the potential of early careers. So this is something in process, and the question is really very important.
Good. The second question, I think, is quite easy one. Yeah. Is the membership in the National Academy of Science, e.g. Estonian Academy of Sciences, mandatory to be eligible for submitting an application?
Not at all, no.
Yeah, I think this is otherwise, there will be...
would be a very small pool.
I wanted maybe point out another important specifics of HIAS, namely that you want to pair the fellows with the Hamburg scholars. I wonder, is it the duty of the applicant to find a partner before submitting, or is it you that actually provide suggestions who would be the most suitable partners?
Either or.
Okay.
A lot of the applicants, but by far not all of them, name someone, and that doesn't need to be someone that they know in person or have worked with in the past. In fact, it often is someone with a like, I always was kind of observing from the sideline what this person is doing. I think it's really interesting. I would love to work with this person. And a lot of applicants don't know. They might have an idea, or they say, actually, I don't really know who's working in my field in Hamburg. And in these cases, I mean, we know the landscape quite well. We do some research, we ask around. Sometimes we have an idea right away. Sometimes we have to dig a little bit. And then we ask the person that we think could be interested if they would be open to it. We've never heard no, and then we suggest this person to the applicant.
So you don't have to have agreement beforehand.
No,
this makes applicants' life easier.
And
I guess.
you are, of course, not restricted to have only one partner. Okay. You are encouraged to work and cooperate with as many people as you see fit and as you find interesting. And again, they don't have to be from your own field. Some of the most interesting and fruitful collaborations arise out of people who are working in very different areas. So, yeah, pretty much anything is possible. And since it can be anybody from our 9 member institutions, the pool really is really big.
Maybe just a small thing. I guess you don't require some knowledge of German in order to apply.
No.
In order to survive in Hamburg, you can do it in English only.
Yes, exactly. So when it comes to HIAS, the lingua franca at HIAS is English, and in Hamburg as well, you can get by with English alone. Yeah.
Last chance to ask something? Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you about the timeline. How does that work exactly? And part of the reason why I ask about it is because I have a child who is at home and next year transitioning from kindergarten to the school. So that can be important to know also this in mind.
Very important, yes. We just finished the selection for the academic year 2024-25 and sent out those applications. And so soon we are going to publish the call for 25-26 on our website. The application deadline will be sometime in the spring of next year, so in the spring of 24, so that by the time you receive your your invitation, which will be about in the fall of 2004, you have another year to prepare. And because our academic year starts in September of a year and ends at the end of June of the following year. So there is no fellow life at HIAS in July and in August, but from September to June, it's buzzing.
Maybe yet another more small question about the length of the stay. You said it's between 3 and 10 months, and I understood you kind of prefer longer stays. I mean, does the length of the stay plays a role in evaluation? Not at all.
No, not at all. That's completely open. Also, if someone already knows of a potential tandem partner or not, does not play a role. It's just, so from my experience, from our experience, it is of course beneficial to give yourself as much time as possible, but sometimes that's just not feasible, and that's all right. We don't want to disadvantage anyone who, for whatever reasons, can only afford to come for 3 months. Less than 3 months, we realized, is tricky. You barely have arrived and kind of acclimatized, and then you have to leave again.
Yeah, makes sense. So thank you so much. Thank you. And give applause. And we will continue with the last presentation, the kind of insider's perspective by Professor Andras Siibak, who will be the fellow, I think, next year in HIAS. So please, the floor is yours.
Yes, so good afternoon yet again. I'm very happy and honored to have this opportunity to be among the buzzing HIAS community, and I'm looking very much forward to my stay, which will materialize next spring. But today for my talk, what I thought to talk about is to give you some insights about my own thought process when I started preparing for the application and what I was thinking, what might be important in such kind of applications. So to give you a bit of background story, then, well, as many of us who daily work in academia know that life in academia can be quite challenging. And obviously, as a scholar, you kind of want to have this peace and quiet, and we always tend to talk that whenever we have time, when I finish this yet another application for a grant, when I finish this preparing for a course, when I finish this particular article, then I will have time to actually think through and digest my next ideas and start preparing for my next ambitious project and just read and write and savor all this to myself, but the reality is like this seven-headed dragon. So you always need to juggle a variety of different things in your daily life. And I'm a mother of twins, which adds additional burden to my academic life. So when you have one head of the dragon slayer, then the next one appears and you realize that you might not ever have this peace and quiet to actually sit back and think your very high provocative, inspiring thoughts. So I started looking for an opportunity to take this time for myself and for my research that could take me away from all these different other obligations that I have. And then I came across the website of HIAS, and I found this one quote that they have on the website, which started to speak to me, and that was the quote I have here in the slide, saying that HIAS will provide a space of intellectual freedom and entirely unimpeded by the usual professional duties in which to pursue their own projects. So here, the words that started to inspire me were really related to, on the first hand, a space for intellectual freedom, and on another hand, to pursue your own projects. Because again, as we know as scholars, there aren't too many opportunities actually to apply for a project with just your own bottom-up process, as we have been talking here already today. So usually when we apply for funding, there is already a topic prescribed, there is already quite a detailed description of what is expected from you as a scholar. So there is just a handful of places where you can submit the project you would like to do, your own dream project. And of course, it's also sometimes related to the career stage. So as you can see from the cartoon, this intellectual freedom comes to a person usually who is in this emeritus stage. And then they can say that I will research whatever. But I bet nobody in academia actually wants to research whatever only when they are close to wrapping up their career. So as I noticed, HIAS providing this opportunity way sooner than emeritus stage was very inspiring and got me thinking about a project. So I started envisioning about my project, and first I started to think about what would be the topic for my particular project, what I would be able to carry out during this scholarship period. And I also knew that due to my other obligations, it's very difficult to get away for the maximum months, but I knew that I'm only able to be there for 3 months. So what is this that I'm able to achieve during this particular period? And when I come across the project that I really wanted to do, what is it, I will tell you slightly later. I also started immediately to think about why this topic might matter. Why is it important? The classical response to the so what question. Like, why should anyone care that this project is being executed? So what is this project and the outcome of this project, what it could contribute to the scholarship at large, on the one hand, to the academia and theoretical thought, but on the other hand, perhaps it can also have some practical implications, and what kind of implications and opportunities my project could contribute to the HIAS community and fellow residents in this community. Also, when I thought through my own plans, then I had to think back of how this project of mine, how does it resonate with all the other things that I have been doing previously from my career? How does it resonate with my previous research and also previous experiences, for instance, previous experiences of supervising students or teaching or carrying out admin work. So what are the potential qualities and knowledge and skills that I have that could be relevant for the community in HIAS and for the successful carrying out of the project? And also, as this application process does happen to be quite extensive in a way that you need to plan quite a bit ahead, I submitted my application in December 2021, and I'm planning to go in spring 24. So you have to envision a project that could still be timely and relevant several years ahead. So I also knew that I have to take a variety of different steps in order to be successful while I'm already in HIAS. So for instance, coming from the background of social sciences, I had the feeling that I also do need to collect my data, carry out various empirical studies, so as to be able to actually concentrate on analyzing this material and materializing this work while I'll be in HIAS. So my project for the scholarship period is a plan to focus on writing my monography, which will be about data-fied schools and data valence of students. Largely, this is then a project about the currently heavily data-fied and technology-saturated education system and how data-dependent this education system has become. And this is well in line with my previous research about the datafication of childhood. And as I knew that it's really important for the HIAS projects to be interdisciplinary, then this project of mine also brings brings together thought processes and theoretical frameworks from a variety of different disciplines, from media and communication, which is officially my field, but also from education and psychology and critical data studies, surveillance studies, and even law and ethics. So, when preparing for this project idea, I also knew that I have to carry out a variety of empirical studies that will then enable me to continue writing this book project and really focus on bringing these different thoughts together. So I also was thinking of the fact that what I could offer. So what I could offer for the community at large, and started to think about what kind of experiences I have, what kind of skills and knowledge, but also what kind of interest I have, and how these could be then valued by HIAS community, and how I could contribute through these skills and interests and experiences to the buzzing HIAS community. And I thought that it's also important to think through why me? Why anyone would like to choose me as a potential fellow for this position? So how and for what reasons you as an applicant are original, why your thought processes and your ideas are novel and worthwhile of others' interest and time. So I think these kind of things are very important to highlight in all kinds of grant applications, but here in the context of HIAS, this is exactly the same. And then when thinking back, I also thought about what could this stay actually offer to me as a scholar who is in the middle of my career, and what kind of opportunities this potential 3 months could provide me, and exactly the things that have been emphasized here today were the things that came to my mind as well. So I have always been a huge fan of interdisciplinary research. I have had an opportunity to work with scholars from different fields, and I know that it's very exciting, but at the same time also quite thought-provoking, and it can be quite problematic as well to find a common language. But when you do find this common language, then the rewards are really significant. So I started looking forward to this interdisciplinary community and collaborating with those people there, with a hope that this could lead to really new projects and new collaborations, be it in the form of some new grant applications or some publications that we might co-author together. So these were definitely things that got me inspired once again. And of course, the opportunity to really talk about your research, not just within the academic community as such, not just within your academic fellows, but also to have a wider public outreach. I think this is also something that is gaining increasingly importance here in Estonia, but also whenever we apply for grants, this importance of science communication and practical implications of your work, and to be able to communicate those practical implications is really important, and to have a chance to do it outside of your local community is definitely also rewarding, not to mention all these opportunities that HIAS provides to organize various events, and an opportunity to invite like-minded people to discuss on a topic that you mutually are engaged in and find inspiring, again, could lead to new opportunities. So all these thought processes then led me to apply and led me to the idea that I need to grab the opportunity because I see so much value this potential fellowship could offer me as a scholar. And hopefully also I have something to offer in return for the community there in HIAS and in Hamburg. So based on my own experience, although I haven't yet had the chance to stay at HIAS, I think this atmosphere and various opportunities this kind of fellowship offers are really rewarding, and considering that in Estonia as well we already have this tradition slowly but steadily lurking into our academic careers, that you can take a sabbatical for a semester, or if you're really lucky, then for a year, then to spend your sabbatical in such kind of environment where your free thought process is supported, encouraged, and you feel inspired from the interdisciplinary community is something we should all try to grab such an opportunity when it's presented to us. So I really hope that there will be many applicants from Estonia and from the region who try to grab this opportunity that HIAS so eloquently and nicely provides. So with that, I stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we can have some questions. Again, I have a few. Maybe one very practical about the point you ended with, namely, you are a full-time professor at the University of Tartu, and I guess you applied for 10 months, or?
I applied for 3 months.
3 months? Okay, that's already answers my question in a way.
The Commission wanted to give you 6 months.
Okay.
Okay.
But anyhow, are you taking a sabbatical? Are you, how you arrange your life in Tartu in order to get to HIAS?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm still waiting to have this talk with the head of the institute, how it will materialize. But I have planned so that I can do all my teaching before I leave, and hopefully get rid of some of the administrative obligations that I otherwise have. And as a parent, I also leave my children here in Estonia and hope that they are able to join me slightly later when the school year ends.
Okay, yeah. So it's a complicated practical arrangement in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's never easy when you have many different roles that you need to fill, and but I think this kind of opportunity is like you need to grab this when it's provided.
And then maybe another question. It was emphasized that you are expected to relate to the academic landscape of Hamburg while you are applying, or at least when you are in Hamburg. What's in your case? I mean, did you explore the existing opportunity? You have already some, contacts in Hamburg, or was it important at all in your project to be somehow related to Hamburg academic landscape? Well,
I have some previous experiences with working some colleagues from Hamburg, from Hans Pedro Institute. We have worked together on a variety of projects, but considering this specific angle, I didn't have anyone concrete in mind. I knew that there is actually one research group which is working on a quite similar topic and would be interested in collaborating perhaps, but I didn't know anyone personally. So I'm just hopeful that we can continue inspiring each other while I'm there.
So you don't know yet who will be your host, so to say?
Yeah, that's still to be determined, yeah.
Okay, good. Interesting. And actually, there's one question from our online audience, but probably it's more to Sonia and Dorothea. So is it possible to find an English-speaking school for older children and combine research stay with a school year in Germany?
It depends on how old the children are. So we have a few English-speaking elementary schools in Hamburg, so that go from first grade to fourth grade until the kids turn 10. When it comes to schools from fifth grade upwards, it is more difficult. We have an international school that is a private school that is quite pricey, and why we can fund daycare and a private school to a certain degree, it will still be a considerable cost. So that is something that we are struggling with. Those are kind of like the infrastructure problems that are kind of beyond our control. We wish we could fund our own school, but we're not there yet. So I would say, while it is no problem, obviously, with younger kids and with elementary school children, it is a bit more tricky with kids who are 11 years and older.
But if I may add another practical question, do you plan to have some kind of publication opportunity, some kind of book series, sponsored by HIAS or something that can, help to materialize some of the discussions or research being done in HIAS?
So we collect all of the publications that our fellows do in all their specific journals. We are currently planning a yearly publication that is kind of has more of an essayistic approach, where fellows write their own contributions. It can be to their topic, it can be to a specific idea that they had in Hamburg that didn't maybe then canalize into a project, but that was nonetheless very informative for them. But we do not have such a series planned yet. But good idea.
Yeah, because some of the institutes have.
Yes,
that's why
they do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so much. Thank you. And I won't make any long conclusion, especially as some coffee and snacks are waiting for us behind my back. But I'm very grateful for your visit. I think we learned a great deal, and I'm very confident there will be plenty of Estonian application next round, and also from other Baltic countries. And also, I think this was important for giving yet another impetus to our project of Estonian Institute for Advanced Studies. This Akadeemia is developing this plan over the last 10 years or more. And I think this idea to work more closely with the city of Tallinn is an excellent idea and worth exploring in the future. So,
be part of a worldwide community,
Absolutely. And indeed, I think Tallinn and Hamburg, there's a long joint history since Hanseatic times, and I think this would be an excellent occasion for further collaboration, also in academic level. Therefore, I think it was very useful, this Info Day, and I think I look very much myself forward to applying in next year or later. So my personal profit of this Info Day. Anyhow, thank you so much for coming, and as said, there should be or will be in a few minutes coffee and snacks served. So thank you, and the Info Day is over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.